Audiences have felt for some time now that movies just aren't of the same quality that they used to be, and that's not really anything new for audiences to point this out, but now we actually have the stars of the movies pointing this out as well. So Zachary Levi, star of Shazam 2, slams the garbage coming out of Hollywood, and this isn't the first time an actor in one of these major movies have said this. Recently, we've had Chris Hemsworth say the same thing regarding Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, a lot of these people won't necessarily say that the movie is bad leading up to it, but after their contracts are up and stuff like that, then they're a little bit more free to speak on it if they feel like that their career can basically take it with them attacking their previous movie. But let's continue on with this other article right here. So it's one thing for critics or audiences to call out Hollywood for making questionable fare. It's another for stars of questionable fare to join in. And that's one thing about this article right here, and I'll get to that in a moment about Zachary Levi not necessarily questioning his own movie, but Zachary Levi's got a bone to pick with what he calls Hollywood's garbage at Chicago Fan Expo on Saturday. The star of one of the year's biggest flops urged attendees to actively not choose crap movies, apparently oblivious to the fact that many of them decided to do just that when faced with Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. While voicing his support for the writers and actor strikes, keep that part in mind because that's important. Levi expressed his frustration with the industry as a whole. I personally feel like I personally feel like the amount of content that comes out of Hollywood that is garbage, they don't care enough to actually make it great for you guys. They don't, Levi said to enthusiastic applause. And he talks about how like you see trailers and they make it look good and stuff like that. And then when you go to the movie, it's not very good. It doesn't deliver on what's promised. And then people just kind of feel disappointed. But the studios, that he says that they don't care because they already got your money and stuff like that, which I think is fair. But there is a big problem with that kind of belief system. Like I said, I think he understands to the point that, yeah, there's bad movies, but he's not really sure about what the problem is with it. And I think what he does notice and rightfully point out that, like, yeah, once people see a movie and they're disappointed, they go and tell their friends, like, this movie sucks. And this is what we see. Like things like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it had a huge box office drop. Little Mermaid, another big box office drop. I mean, The Flash famously had a big box office drop, even worse than the old Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. And of course, this is actually kind of contrary to what he actually is claiming, though, because look at this. 83% on Rotten Tomatoes for audience scores, which means audiences were actually fairly favorable of this, yet the movie had a huge box office drop. So what gives? I mean, that kind of flies in the face of what he's trying to claim about people are disappointed because apparently they weren't disappointed with The Flash, even though it had a huge drop. But yeah, he says the studios don't care because they got their money. And that's the biggest crux of his argument right there, is that he says it's just the studios right there. And I don't necessarily think that that's the case, because when you look at the list of, let's say right here, the most expensive movies ever made, like in the, something like over half of them have been made within the last 5 years. And that's in the top 20 list of here, about half of them have been made in the last 5 years. And if you go back to the last 10 years, all but 3 of them in the top 20 have been made in the last 10 years. So why would studios be devoting so much money to something that is just going to fail? Because honestly, even if you have such a crazy opening weekend, I mean, like, look at some of these more recent ones, like Star Wars right here, $447 million for The Force Awakens. Are they going to devote that much money if they're planning on people just kind of abandon it after the first week? No, you can't make that much money. I mean, this movie needs to make around $1 billion in order to break even. And they're trying to say like, oh, well, we'll just get the first weekend crowd and then that's it, because that's what happens when you have a crappy movie. But that's not what they're trying to do. I think it's not the studios who are actually responsible for this for the most part. I mean, they share a blame in this, but I think a big issue is honestly with the writers themselves, because the writers themselves a lot of the time are paid up front to write the movie, and they don't care whether the movie succeeds. I mean, maybe they want it for personal clout or for career growth, because if they wrote a movie that did well, then they're going to get better work and more work. But for the most part, I don't think they actually care about whether the movie succeeds, as long as they can write what they want to write. And I think that's the biggest problem right there. Now, I don't think the studios are completely void of all responsibility on this matter too, because they are the ones funding this one as well. So yeah, after talking about how this actually, the trailers undersell movies, And then he goes in to talk about Shazam itself. The audience score is still quite good, but the critic score was, I don't know, very oddly and perplexingly low, and people were insanely unkind. He said last month, after previously blaming the movie's marketing, listen, I've been a part of things, and as much as I wish I could say they were all good, I know they're okay. I know they've missed out. I'm not saying Shazam Fury of the Gods is some perfect Orson Welles masterpiece, but it's a darn good movie. And that also is reflected in the audience score of that. I mean, it was okay on that. So, I mean, maybe he can say, like, yeah, people who watched this movie did like the movie. And I think that's where the studios have responsibility in this matter, because the writers are writing movies for more niche audiences like this, like people like Shazam Fear of the Gods. It was just a smaller audience than what the studios needed for the budget that they gave it. People seem to like The Flash, all right, but the audience for that was significantly lower than what the audience needed for a budget of that size. So I think what studios need to do is start reducing budgets for a lot of these movies and basically let the writers do what they want to do. Cater to a more niche audience or whatever that might really like the movie or might find it enjoyable, but at the same time the movie is not going to bomb because it has such a huge budget where it needs to cater to general audiences. Instead, you can just reduce the budget down, cater to a niche audience. It can be successful. People who watch it like it. The studios make their money. They're happy, and it won't be considered a box office bomb in the future. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.